Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so headed back after doing my walk up the Hollywood Hills with a semi-full backpack. It ain't overly full, but it's heavy enough. Get a nice resistance, and trying to make it back before 4 o'clock because the late NBA draft lottery, which tells us what the NBA draft order is going to be, comes up at 4. So I'd like to see that, but I don't know if I'm gonna be back in time. It's like 3:10 right now, so I'll be pushing it either way. But yeah, man, there's a lot going on in the world. We got the Diddy situation where he's got his opening arguments on his trial supposed to be starting today, and I heard some details there that were kind of disturbing about that situation, which I'm sure more will be unfolding. I don't think it's almost a whole lot to gain substance-wise from that situation that hasn't already been discussed. If anything, they're just about to hold him accountable for all of the evil stuff that he did or was alleged to have done. And that's what's due. That's what's due. So that's about as much as I want to say. Some of the details are kind of ridiculous, but people do what they do, man. I'll tell you. If you don't get your sex in order, if you allow it to, it can consume you and ruin your life. No matter how much power you have, or if you got nothing at all, you're susceptible to this. We got to be of the right wants, as I often say. Asking God to help me with the right wants so that I don't let anything that I got going on in any way lead me down a path I don't appreciate. That's all we can do within our own selves, hold ourselves accountable for whatever it is we got to deal with. And that's really what it is. A lot of times, some of the things that we want in our lives are manifested from a place of selfishness, a place of mistakenness, a place of a lack of discipline, or a space that isn't positive. And as I said in a video earlier today, if we have our foundation or whatever we're building upon, if it isn't sturdy, whatever you're building on it will fall. And the same goes with your mental space, what you feel you're entitled to. When you get to a certain place in your life in terms of success, and how you define the foundation of how you define what success looks like for a lot of people is allowing themselves to let their demons run amok, allow all of their most wildest desires to be fulfilled once they reach a certain level of success or a certain amount of money. And to a point, society has done a terrible job of telling people that they have to hold themselves accountable as they get to certain spaces, just like they would if they were on a smaller level. But just the same, we're all responsible for our own selves and our own shame. And this is why I think it's important that I have conversations like this. A lot of times we talk about things that are going on in the world that are a result of people not holding themselves accountable or allowing themselves to be fat and happy, as we like to talk about, allowing ourselves to be in a space where we don't respect that there are consequences for our behaviors. And so I think this is fitting in the sense that, sometimes we just want the wrong things, and sometimes we allow the foundation of how we feel about success lead us down a path where we undo all of the success that we gain. So start first with understanding that just because you reach a certain level does not mean you're entitled to anything or anyone. That you should still be just as grateful and appreciative of what you receive when you're desperate as you are when you earn what it is that ultimately you're working hard for. Because I hear this a lot, and granted, maybe I'm not in the position to really relate to a person who's very successful. But I was looking at academics as he was entertaining, but in the presence of trying to be entertaining, lashing out at different people who were lashing out at him. To whatever degree he feels this is necessary, but lately he's been getting at people, and some, the women the people he's happened to get into it with as of late have been women. And I'm from a different era in life. I believe that if you're a man, there's only but so much arguing you want to do with a woman. It's just a bad look for us. But we're in a different era now, different time now, and in the spirit of equality and empowerment and identity politics, the lines are kind of blurred for a lot of people. and adjusting one's mind to that will help you fit in a little better. Doesn't mean you have to adjust your standards for how you want to behave, but your expectations for other people's standards needs to adjust. And there's a balance there, and I think I have that. So I say it's, for myself, I don't feel like I look good if I'm arguing with a woman, let alone fighting with a woman, but there's only so many words I should be having with a woman. And if I have it out with a woman, the most honorable thing for my demonstration of what it is I was raised to be about is to communicate with the men in her life. Just like if I get into it with a woman and it requires some type of fight, I should have women in my corner who should be willing to pick up that fade. I should not have to swing at a woman for any reason, unless it's life or death. But that's how I was raised. Not everybody's raised that way. I have to expect that people are not going to align with that line of thinking, or have evolved lines of thinking that are even better than my point of view. But just the same, academic is aligned with an idea that he'll get at anybody who's getting at him in any way. If you're negative, he's going to talk out with you or whatever. And with that being his position, through the lens that I have, I don't think it looks all that great. But that's not the point. The point was, in getting into it with this particular woman as of late, one of the things that he hearkened back to as a qualifier for him to have the right to be treated with a certain level of respect is that he built his platform from the ground up, that he put in the work, that he deserves that respect and doesn't need to be talked to by anyone who hasn't built anything in his arena. So if you haven't built anything, if you have a job, you work for somebody else's platform, in his mind, you gotta bow to him or respect him differently because of what he's built. Those are measures of his respect and mind that he demands of the world around him, and he'll stand on that. That's his right. But just the same, as a person who doesn't subscribe to that, and dare I say looks at what it is that he's doing as something that doesn't respect himself, I speak from the mouth and the lens of a person who said, I don't really understand why I'm forced to respect him just because he's built something. That's a foundation of entitlement that I don't think is the measures of success for the things of substance that I most appreciate. It's sort of like saying the man who has the most money needs to be given the most respect. Where does the line draw with that? It's the same thing that we talk about in regards to the individuals who are committing genocide right now, believing that they can hurt these people because in their mind, one of many reasons is they don't contribute much to society. Now, granted, a lot of what it is that they're contributing is suppressed. What it is they would contribute has been suppressed by these same people. But it's aligned with the same level of qualifying thinkings to say that your works are the determining factor of what you're worth. And it's how much success you have or how much work you put in it that gains success should determine whether or not somebody should respect you out and about in the world. And that your worth is only as good as what you provide. Which is just something I don't subscribe to. Because it leaves out the nuance of how a person gets success, how a person was helped to success versus someone else. It's sort of like we talk about when considering measuring the same playing field as people of success who've been given investment money from which to start their success versus those who don't have their family giving them anything, or individuals who measure each other from the same playing field when they start in different spaces. We gotta spot people certain things if you want to measure them against people who've been spotted certain things, right? We're not all starting from the same spot. We're not all on the same playing field, essentially what I'm saying. And it doesn't take into account that being the case when you consider what it is that people say they're supposed to be respected for, which is how much success they've gained or how much they've been able to build that has been successful, or how many hours they put in or what have you. It doesn't take into account those who didn't have the opportunity or weren't given what this person may have been given, or wasn't afforded the free time to do so based on circumstances that aren't accounted for in these situations. But what about those people? Should we not spot them some leeway to say that maybe they couldn't build? or to give you the credit to say you were given a gift from the Most High that allows for you to have the work ethic that is far exceeded someone else's? Does that mean that you should be treated with more decency because of what you've been privileged? If that's the case, where does that end and where does it begin? And if I'm not drawing the line with somebody else, why am I drawing the line with him? And so that's where it comes down to for me. It's like I don't look at things like that. I'm not necessarily wired that way. Maybe it's because I haven't reached a certain level of wealth or success that would make it so that I can relate to that. Maybe if what I did was more successful, if what I did, I put in even more work, I would have more of my standards wrapped up in those works and that dedication. And there's a lot of pride to be had for building from the ground up. But to say that a person shouldn't have the right to express an opinion to you that's not related to such circumstances, that's related to other things for which they may feel inclined to use toward you, that you would shut your mind off to those opinions because they haven't accomplished what you accomplished, doesn't speak to all of the different things that made it so that it was possible that you accomplish those things, not maybe being in their lives. The person's not beneath you because they didn't spend a majority of the time that they've been on earth focusing on the things that you would focus on, or driven to do the things that you did to get what it is you had. And that you feel they're beneath you will often rob you of an opportunity at mass self-worth in the eyes, or not self-worth, but a lot of respect in the eyes of people who are observing you, who don't subscribe to your line of thinking. And only a few people are going to respect that in the arena of substance, in the arena of wisdom, in the arena of values, in the arena of morale, which is really what the world is actually made up of in its own way. Even though there are a lot of people who've been successful, there are more people who haven't been successful, who haven't had opportunities, who haven't been driven on a singular thing that has been extremely successful. And we still have values in ourselves to communicate with people who may not have been as successful as well, and receive from them all of the fruit, all the accountability, which could be a blessing to ourselves if we receive it in a constructive and respectful way. I said all of that to say I'm not in Act's arena, but I would never capitulate to his standards of what should be given in regards to respect based on his works, nor would I apply that to anyone else. That's not for me to say that I would disrespect him and assume that I know about what it is that he has going on with his business, or more than in regards to what it is that he's mastered in his art form of life, what it is he's been working on. I respect that he did that. But I'm not going to tell him or refrain from telling him to pull up his pants, for example, just an example, based on him being successful in this area and building something versus myself, who has not been as driven to do so. He may look at me as beneath him because of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to agree with his point of view or adhere to that in the presence of others once I walk away from his point of view. I said all that to say, I don't think we should be looking at one another based on our contributions. Not everybody can contribute so much to the capitalism of things, or the environment of entertainment success, or the environment of educational standards for which we respect people. A lot of people are not in a position, for good reasons and bad ones, to reach those standards. But they may be able to contribute other things which you would value from somebody who reached those standards if you subscribe to this line of thinking. Things that you won't take from anyone else, but you would take from somebody that you quote unquote respect. Those measures of success deem your level of respect, and that's what gives birth to a lot of the worst things that we see in this world today, when you really consider it. People respecting people who have a lot, people who've done a lot. A lot of those people are driven by the same energy that makes them horrible people. Is that they were so aligned with what it is that would drive them to be successful speaks to the significance within not only what's good, but the intensity in regards to maybe what's not. You know, the same level of intensity that makes them great could be the same thing that drives them to be awful people. That same will that they have to be successful in high levels and to become elite amongst the many who've tried what they've done, maybe the same thing that'll drive them to be abusers and all different types of energies that are no good. So if we're respecting people because of what they've accomplished, are we not taking into account that variable? A variable that speaks to the depravity of their mind and the obsessive nature that they have, that they can lock in on something obsessively, just like they may lock in on something that they have no business locking in on obsessively. Or the same thing that rises them to the top and make them somebody you probably need to call the cops on, so to speak. I just think we don't take into account the evolution and what level we're on versus where we're headed in a lot of things. There's so much new coming. We talk about evolution. We talk about science continuing to reveal to us more truths. You know, continuing to be something that is learned and unpacked, so to speak. We don't apply that to a lot of the things that we subscribe to when it comes to treating one another different. A lot of stuff is still being unpacked. A lot of stuff is still being understood. A lot of stuff is still not mastered by the human race, but we act like we're a finished product. We act as if what we know today is what we'll know tomorrow forevermore. And I tell you, that's where we go wrong a good portion of the time. Certain measures are just as it is. This is what we do. Without actually taking into account that a lot of what it is that we did, we no longer do. I try not to let that leave my mind when I subscribe to different ideologies and certain things that people have taught me about what is appropriate, what is not, what is understood, what is not. A lot of this stuff is just mental conditioning passed down by generations. Things that people have agreed upon based on a world that is changing. That a world that is no more. Sort of like we talked about in the previous video. People holding on to power, but the world changed around them and now they're looked at differently. So how is it that the power that they've amassed could be considered something that would stay in their pockets, so to speak, if their image has changed, the dynamic around them has changed, the way people view them has changed? Why wouldn't that power not be shook or loose by that dynamic potential? It doesn't have to be, but could it not be more of a possibility now that the world is changing and so is them? So has they? And if you're aligned to the idea that they're the power and they're the ones you adhere to and this and that, you don't get out in front of that. If you don't anticipate them losing that power, whatever you're building on the foundations that they provided is going to fall. Because it's no longer a strong foundation. Or never was. See, a lot of things are just going to be horrible for people. That's what it really comes down to. Because they don't anticipate much change. Because they do need to learn lessons the hard way. That's what's wrong with the future. Just like it's what's wrong with the past in a lot of cases. People needed to bump their head. People needed to touch the fire in order to know it was hot. People needed to see consequences before they understood that they shouldn't do certain things. And humanity is not changing that way. We're still childish in that way. In a lot of cases, we see people who've amassed a lot of power and a lot of wealth still needing to bump their head in order to know that they shouldn't do whatever it is that otherwise causes it. Wisdom scoffed at. Arrogance, standing out in front of the person and their activities and their actions. They need to get burnt in order to know that they shouldn't touch that fire. And there are a lot of people who are trusting those people to lead them. A lot of people are adhering to those people as if they're the most wise and the most respected because they were the most driven and the most successful. This is a mistake. In so many different cases, we learn so many different other lessons. But we can't seem to learn the most simple of lessons, as in our manners, substance should come before things that we're touching, things that we can feel, things that we can build, things that we agree upon in a lot of cases. Money should come second to our morals, humanity, and and all of these different things that matter most to those of us who are smart enough to know not to touch fire. We've watched other people burn themselves. We learn lessons through other people's mistakes. We ain't got to learn these lessons on our own. We see entire countries, entire corporations make these mistakes, allowing themselves to get fat and happy, arrogant, out of control in a lot of cases, greedy, only to find themselves falling because of it, only to find that everything they've built gets wiped away because of that. Aligning with people who are doing horrible things because of politics. Politics that are measured and built upon foundations that were immoral to begin with. I tell you, man, I don't want to learn lessons the hard way if I can help it. I've learned enough of them in my own life so far. And maybe certain things I don't have under control yet that I would otherwise help me make better decisions. The challenge for myself and anyone else is to want to be better. As I always try to put in this on this channel, to be of better wants, to subscribe to the idea that your wants can evolve just like everything else can. That you can align yourself with things that discipline you for your betterment so that you are not hungry for things that bring about your destruction. You fight that hunger with intention of discipline. You fight that hunger with understanding I'm not building my house on that foundation. I don't care how many people say they need this and this is what the music say and that's what... No, because if I build my house on that foundation, it falls apart. If I start down the path of drinking regularly, alcoholism follows. If I start down the path of taking a drug, addiction follows. If I start down the path of anything destructive, the hunger for more destruction there follows. As people say a lot of times, when you get money, it enhances what's already there. That's what we need to work on, what's already there. That's what all of us need to work on, what's already there. I asked the Lord, like, if I'm gonna get money, man, make me a better person than I was yesterday. If I would have got money when I wanted it the most, when I was sitting back thinking about how I could get rich, whatever way I was thinking it, I was going to be a horrible person for that blessing coming into my life. I'd have probably lost all that money quickly. If I'd have gotten famous when I most wanted to be famous, I wouldn't have led people down no path positive at all with my intentions, based on the selfishness and the immaturity that I engaged in. And the foundations that I built upon at the time that didn't have no strength to it, no balance to it, no discipline to it. That's why I say, God, I don't want just what I would been told I should want, or what feeds the hunger of weaknesses inside. You know, I think about like what drives a person to feel lonely in a lot of cases as it pertains to relationship lonely. lot of times it's driven by a lust, not a desire for companionship for a lot of people, not a desire to give and to forgive, but lust drives people into wanting to be with somebody just to be with somebody. I need somebody in my bed at night. I need somebody there with me and to do these things and that things. If you work on those wants, that foundation, you can be a lot more patient and not be as hungry or thirsty, as we like to call it, for companionship. We don't even think to discipline ourselves against certain things based on the wants that they inspire within us. Those wants lead us down the path of ending up with the wrong people, pushing away the right people, not being patient in situations. How many of us in our lives, and maybe it's not for everybody, but how many of us in our lives have let go of people that were probably pretty good for us, but because they didn't want to have sex right away, we moved on? Or stayed around with somebody because they were willing to have sex with us over and over again, even though they weren't bringing great qualities to our lives? If you were to discipline yourself in that area and focus your energy in that area, you would not have been as thirsty as to be in that situation. You would have been more patient as to welcome the right situation. You wouldn't have been as thirsty. You pushed a good girl away because she didn't want to be a thought. But then you found a girl that you knew was easy, and she ended up cheating. She ended up giving herself away to every damn body. Got pregnant by somebody else. You only brought her into your life because you were trying to feed a hunger that you should have been trying to discipline against. She would have never been in your life if not for first the foundation of that hunger. That's why I asked the Lord to help me in regards to my own self, because it's like, yo, once a man starts reaching a certain space where they haven't been around a woman in a long time, you start telling yourself you need something to fulfill the sexual needs in your life instead of to fulfill the things that most matter when things go wrong in your life. She ain't gonna help you when you get sick. When you don't have money, she ain't gonna be around. You see what I'm saying? That type of stuff, but you welcome that into your life as if that's the only foundation there is, because the music tells you that's a foundation, because you run to different people, they have that conversation because they've been warped by that same culture, and you don't think that nothing good can come your way. Maybe you ran into some bad seeds, so now it's like you don't believe in no love or nothing. You just believe in transactional circumstances. I was listening to Summer Walker's latest song. She talking about she used to believe in love, but in a world like this, what's the point? Buy her diamonds and pearls. That's all she needs. Keep your heart. Like, fam, you are being led by something that doesn't want you to find anybody that's going to stay with you when this all goes away. You're going to be still thinking those same thoughts later on in life when you run through so many different people that bought you so many different things but weren't there unless you did this, did that, did this on the double, quick. You don't have any partnership, and it's not because you didn't find anything in the world. It's because you're making up what the world you believe is by being that way yourself. As we say, be the good in the world that you want to see in the world. Don't expect to see good in the world if you're not willing to be that. Everybody waiting for something great to come their way without asking to be great first. The Lord put it in my heart when considering being in a relationship. How much am I willing to give? Not just want, but like, am I ready to sacrifice something that maybe I want to hold on to, like my time? Don't just say I want a girl who looks a certain way, she gonna do, and then she gonna do for me, and then once she's willing to do for me, then I'm willing to do for her. You're starting with the wrong foundation if you're not willing to give. I'm looking for somebody to fulfill me, make me whole. You ain't trying to be whole without that person? Oh, your foundation is off. Because now if they fill that space, when they get removed for whatever reason, now you're not whole again. You think you can't live without them. Now you're ready to unalive yourself because they're not here. Your foundation was off. You built that relationship on a foundation of emptiness. Build your house on a hole, in a hole. We got to get to a point where we start having these concepts in our head, because a lot of times we set ourselves up for failure based on not disciplining ourselves against certain things that should not even be what is the foundation for the things that we ultimately welcome. And it's not limited to relationships, but it's most relevant in relationships, and a lot of times it's most relevant in communications between lovers or what have you, because these are the things that often make us go for certain people. She looked like somebody I saw in the porno. If she can do those things, she's my wife. I can't tell you how many times, even as a young person, homie said, man, that's wifey material. Why? Because she looks a certain way. You ain't even heard her open her mouth. You ain't even seen this woman smile yet. You've seen her from one angle and you're talking about marrying her. Do you know what goes into a marriage? But we're raised to be shallow, and people wonder why. People wonder why shallow energy should not be followed. When people say, yo, you're shallow, this is what comes of that. Choices like this that lead down that path. Man, I got her because she fine. I'm wealthy. She got me because I'm wealthy. She want him because he wealthy. She want him because he tall. Like, these are the type of things that are like, yo, I hate to tell you this, and those standards you could very well find in a person that is meant for you. But if these are the measures by which you're going to welcome somebody into your life, do not be surprised when these things fall apart. And if everybody's subscribing to the same thing, it's no wonder marriage don't work in this country. Because everybody's choosing people for the wrong reasons and leading people to choose people for the wrong reasons, raising each other, raising our kids to choose people for the wrong reasons. Don't get with him, because he's a different color than us. That type of stuff, purity. That foundation doesn't work. That's not, well, that has nothing to do with his standards or whether or not he's going to be around for your daughter. You're going to push her toward, you're going to have her collapse all of these different ideal people in her life because you want her to follow a certain code that's going to deteriorate any damn way over time. And you follow these seeds that are planted in these spaces to keep us chasing the wrong things, finding ourselves empty, and ultimately aligning with the enemy, which is really what this is always all about. It's always something out there that's suggesting to you that you're not good enough. We talked about many times that you ain't enough, that you ain't gonna be enough, that you need to just be skeptical of goodness and just be as guarded and jaded as possible, as to welcome whatever fits your world and whatever doesn't needs to go away. And then that point of view creates guilt. As you move how that goes, you end up doing things you have no business doing. And you find yourself with the consequences that come with that. It's like, yo, it doesn't work. Those who want to promote this crap to us know it doesn't work. They don't want us to work. They don't want our lives to work out. They want us to continue to be depressed and unhealthy, stressed, alone, and ultimately funneled into one of their many people cages. Healthcare, hospital because you're sick, jail because you did something you had no business doing, being jaded and evil the way they want you to be. Like, this is they're funneling people into these spaces that are no good for them, man, on purpose in this society, suggesting to you that you ain't enough and you should be sad about that the next person that maybe you fall in love with ain't enough unless they have a bunch of stuff that you likely have to do a bunch of stuff in order to get. And then you can receive your respect. Then you can receive the right to speak to somebody who has that success and provide them any wisdom that otherwise provide. This is an orchestrated demonic space from which to destroy human spirit. That's what America is. That's what it's always been. That's what the Western world has always been. That's what it was built to be. And if you start applying this, for which I said, to what it is that you see, you're going to find it more than not. Something suggesting that you, within your space of whatever hunger you have, want something, need something, and build your foundation off of that. It leads you to choices, to partners that are uneven for you. Uneven yokes, as my mother used to say. People that you should not be spiritually aligned with. Matching you up with people, wasting 25, 30 years with people because they meet criteria that isn't even of a stable foundation. She fine, he got money. They the same race as us, they're a different race than us, and we don't date our race. So whatever evil, you know what I'm saying, it doesn't vet people properly. It doesn't tell you how loyal a person is, if they're gonna be able to be there for you, if they're willing to give when they receive a lot, if they're willing to stay with you once things get rough, all these different things that really matter when it comes to a partnership. It really matters when it's time to start building your home. It really matters when it's time to pick out a mother for your children. We welcoming people in our lives for the wrong reasons and suffer the fate that come with that. You know how many people have died, literally died, because they subscribe to this the wrong way. If all of them could come out of their grave and tell us what we know, what they know based on what it is they lived through, they would have something like this to say to all of us. If they could be honest and clear about what got them killed, it would likely be something they probably would love to have disciplined against. I just let that hunger get out of hand. Man, I should have never even started down that path. I would have never wanted that. If somebody would have just told me that I could be of better wants and challenge my wants for the better, challenge myself to not want every damn thing and hoard every damn thing, maybe I'd still be here. Maybe I'd still be able to welcome the blessings that the Lord would have for the living. We're evolving. That's what I'm hoping I can suggest. Something against that for which is supposed to suppress our evolution. Love does exist. You know why? Because I'm going to be that loyal person. And I'm going to discipline myself and challenge myself and talk to God about challenging me, holding me accountable, providing me lessons learned through whatever he chooses so that I get it, so that I am that. And then when I become that, what it is that I build should likely be more fruitful for not only myself, but for anybody affected by the energy that I put out. Because the foundation of what it is I'm building on is strong. So whatever I build, whether it stands or it falls, can be rebuilt again, because that foundation can be built upon. Things can grow from it. I can farm on that foundation, so to speak. This is what I'm trying to provide y'all. That's the fruit of wisdom that I'm trying to give people generations ahead. So we don't make some of the same mistakes that led a lot of people to being dead. Following entities that have long desired to see people's numbers few. See families separate and never come about. See people finding themselves with people they have no business being with. Having children that are going to suffer because of it and make other people suffer furthermore because of it. So that's what I'm here to say, man. I'm going to challenge people to be a better once. It's up to us, man, to look at some of this stuff that's challenging us to be our worst, that's challenging us to be stupid and shallow, that's challenging us to welcome death into our lives in the form of so many poor choices and so much bad energy. And look at it as the poison that it is. And look at them as the murderers that they are for giving it to us. And then furthermore, discipline our minds away from those things so that we don't hunger for those things or the things that come from it. Putting things that are healthy into our stomach and letting that be the culture that drives us forward. So that's what I want to say, man. Be blessed, everybody. Understand that you can win these battles. There's a lot of things suggesting you destroy you for its reasoning. And this is a generation that is discarded for the sake of the building of economies and the building of various different things that are supposed to last past the lifetime of a human body. They are discarding of us so that they can have prosperous, money-making, too big to fail type stuff in the future, that they're able to pass generational wealth amongst a few in regards to. They will have your kids and your grandkids building, working in these corporations for half of what they're worth, just like they did your grandfather, just like they're doing you. Or have you building the machines that work for you while so many people go without jobs. It's one thing that academics subscribe to that I agreed to in regards to that circumstance, and that was building your own thing. You should strive to want your own. But you should also strive from within having your own to subscribe to ideals that have a foundation of morals, of courage, of faith, so that you don't have to step on the backs of others in order to see it be fruitful. Desires that come from a space of discipline and a space from which to build on the foundation of truth and honor, so that you can be a contributor to the evolution of the world around you and the world that comes after you, not a deterrent to its evolution, so that you can stand on its back and build on a foundation that eventually collapses because of it. I don't know what the Lord has for me, but I know this: if I allow myself to be so depressed over the depravity of the things that I haven't received, it ends up being an overcorrection of sorts to fulfill that need. I gotta have any woman because I haven't had any woman lately. No, you need to get the right woman for the sacrifice of how long it's been since you've been with someone. That you haven't been with someone means that you are healthy to someone that's with someone different every day to fulfill that. And furthermore, able to discipline yourself against the holes that often people fall into when they overindulge and then go without for a moment. These are the good things that come from not having what it is that ultimately you think you must have, that the world is telling you you must have. Some of that stuff you don't need, and furthermore, you will be worse if you got it too often. That you would be out of control if you had it too often. Hey, buddy. And so that's what I'm here to tell y'all. We got to discipline ourselves against certain things you don't need, certain things you think you want but don't bring about anything good. Certain things leave you fat and happy if you eat too much of it, and you become addicted to it and can't go without it. These are all bad things to want. These are all things that people fall into and end up making bad choices with their life because of the needs to have certain things that really, if they just discipline against, they'll be so much more fruitful in the decision making, in the way that they approach people in their lives. They have more dignity, more self-respect, more respect to provide others. Demons ain't running all amok in your life because you've disciplined against certain things with the foundation of understanding that good has come with me not having this. I'm more disciplined. I'm more likely to not be tempted by that because I don't need it as much, because I understand what comes with just giving myself any old thing, or overcorrecting, so to speak, and making sure that I have every damn thing because I didn't get anything. These are things we have to discipline against in order not to fall victim to what the enemy has in store for us. You know, I often think of it like water pressure. When you're in front of a dam, so to speak, and it's leaking a hole, and someone puts a finger in the hole to stop the pressure, and the pressure pops another hole open, and 2 holes pop open. You put something in those holes, and then 3 more pop open. It's just that same concept. It's the same concept, man. Any addiction, any hunger, any fed demon of human needs and superficial needs, physical needs, adherent to cultures that are supposed to feed those physical needs and abiding by them as if they're law. These are the things that open up new holes of overcorrection in our own lives, making it so that we do the wrong things, welcoming the wrong things, the wrong way, maybe the right things, but the wrong way, or too much of it. I love putting beef in my meal, so to speak. But if I put too much of it, now I've overdone it. Suddenly I've overconsumed on beef, and now it could bring about health problems. Disciplining against your portions. Even though you love what you're eating, you don't need to eat too much of it. You know? That's self-discipline. And maybe the only person that's in your circumference to tell you that, maybe the only person God put in your life to tell you that is somebody who hasn't accomplished anything that you otherwise don't respect. And if you adapt to the devil's intentions to make you only respect people who've built what you've built or something like it, then guess what you ain't receiving? The wisdom that comes with that. That's going to lead you down a path to have more life. better life, lead you away from certain traps that are set up by opportunists who understand this about you and otherwise use certain things against you to get from you what it is that you've built for yourself and your children. They use these weaknesses against you. They use your overindulgence against you. They use your perversions against you. And after having this happen so many different times, with foundations that are meant, that start even before the success comes, you would think we would start understanding that it's these foundations that ultimately leave us susceptible to these things. You discipline against yourself, having certain things, certain wants early, then they can never use that against you when it's time for you to be successful and they want to take everything from you. They have to find another way. They can't use your sex against you because you already disciplined against that early. This is why raising your kids right is so important, because this is what you help them avoid when you give them the right stuff. Substance, value and manners and morals and codes and spirit. The devil and the things that come against people aren't able to take advantage of these weaknesses that are in people. So that's what I want to say, man. This is wisdom. It's one thing to regurgitate it from within my mouth. It's another thing to be able to speak it and then follow it. Anybody can speak a script. I got to follow what it is I say, or I suffer the ills of what comes from not, just like anybody else. I'm a messenger, but I hope to be one who's also following the things that I'm saying. But there's still more work to do, man. But whether I'm able to follow it or not, whether I'm smart enough to follow what it is I preach or not, doesn't make it any less true. So that's what I want to say to all of you, man. Keep hope alive. Good things can come to people. Nobody's perfect. Nothing comes easy. A lot of times we do end up bumping our heads. It makes us more likely to be able to teach others how not to. All of these different things are real, man. Yeah, you know, not everybody gets it right. But at the end of the day, man, we want to teach people how to avoid certain things that ultimately come with making bad decisions and having bad foundations, man. BDL 44, I thank you all for watching. I'm out.